Miss Lanehart, your art teacher, for another lesson in cut paper stories. When we make cut paper stories, we use scissors and paper. We cut shapes that will show the setting and the characters of a story. Then you'll get to play around with your shapes and move them and change them until you feel like your picture shows an exciting moment in your story. Then you'll use a glue stick and you'll glue those pieces down. Then you can tell someone your story. We're going to need everything in our art kit bags today. All the papers can be used, the scissors, and the glue stick. Now it's time to get started and work on your own cut paper picture. Choose a background paper, one of the larger papers from your bag. That will tell us what time of day it is in your story. Day, night, morning or sunrise. Then you'll need your black papers, which you'll create setting pieces from, and a pair of scissors. Pause the video to choose your background paper and get your black paper and scissors out. You can cut shapes out of your black paper to show settings in your story. If you want to make a triangle, you can take one of your rectangles or squares and cut from corner to corner. Straight edge shapes look like things like buildings or slides or ramps or doors. Look at this way of making a door. If your picture is inside, straight edge shapes can be tables or beds. If you want to make it look like your story is outside, you can make different kinds of cuts to look like you're showing something outside. A wavy line can look like we're out in nature, maybe a hillside or waves. If you cut the corners off of a shape with kind of a wobbly line, it could look like a rock or some kind of other natural object. So we can make settings with curvy, wavy lines to look like we're outdoors. We can make rectangles and triangles into buildings or indoor things. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and use your scissors and your black paper to cut some shapes to show the setting or the place where your story is going to happen. To get started, you might ask yourself, where do I want my story to happen? Indoors or in a town? Or do I want it to happen outside or in nature? When you finish cutting your pieces, just lay them on your paper. Don't glue them down yet. You're going to want to be able to move them around. Pause the video to cut 2 or 3 pieces to show your setting for your story. I want to show you how you could make some simple characters for your story. You have some strips in your bag. If you take one of the strips and cut off a rectangle, and then cut off another piece that's a little more like a square, take that square and snip off the corners, round the corners of your square, and you'll get kind of a circle-ish shape. If you put that circle-ish shape on top of that rectangle, look how you've made a person. If you'd like to make another person and you want to make it look like they are smaller, you might want to hold up the strip next to the first one and make sure you cut it a little bit smaller. Again, make yourself a square and round out those corners, kind of like you're cutting your fingernail. Just round off just the corners. Think about size, showing the relationship between the two characters. You can make characters with different shapes too. Triangles could be characters. Taking a rectangle and a circle and turning it on its side can suddenly turn it into an animal. You could add details if you needed to show what kind of animal it was. You can use other simple shapes to create other kind of animals. You could add arms and legs if you needed to, if they were part of telling the story. For instance, if your character needed to be holding something, you might need to make an arm for them. Or if you wanted to show a character was running fast, you might need to make some legs. Only add arms or legs to characters if you really need them for telling the story. Pause the video now to cut any characters you might want in your story. Adding some simple objects and little details to characters can be a really good way to give us clues about what's happening in your story. And if those objects are a bright color, it will help us notice them. You can also make connections by making objects and details the same color. Look at the picture behind me. This character is holding an object. It's a fish, and it's bright orange, so it helps you notice it. There are other things that are orange in this picture too that I've added for details. They give you clues about my story. Notice the polar bear also has an orange eye, and there's an orange window in that house over there. So this is a clue that this polar bear might be eyeing this fish, and the person holding the fish is really thinking about that cozy window in that house over there. Take a moment to cut a few details and maybe an object that will give us clues about what's happening in your story. After you've really played around and moved your pieces around until you've created the story that you want, pick a moment in the story that's really an exciting moment and glue the pieces down, showing that moment in your story. There are lots of different colors in your bag that you might use for interesting objects and details. When you're finished thinking about your story and making changes and adding pieces, glue your pieces onto your background paper with your glue stick. Others will want to know what your story's about. Can you write in your journal what's happening in your picture? What is the story? This is our last art lesson for a while, but I hope you will keep choosing to make art yourself at home. You have art materials left over from our art kits and lots of ideas. You could make more superpowered characters and write more comics, or draw in your sketchbook. Don't forget those junk puppets. The winter break would be a great time to make more junk puppets and do performances. You could make more cut paper stories and turn them into cards or gifts. You can make art with your family members at home. What kind of art does your family make? Happy art making, artists, and Gunesh Jish for spending this time with me.